to Minister Burton's department, Minister Quayle's department, what elements are being made under the Jobs Action Plan for all those departments to come together and actually put their divisions aside, and put a proper activation system in place. A proper activation system is not 5,000 extra places when we have 400,000 people on the live register.
Thanks. Just very briefly, Minister.
Well, very briefly, I think obviously there are a huge number of training places available. I think across FOSS there's 90,000, across the VCs there is, more than 100,000. There are a lot of places available, and this solace, which is again under Minister Cannon, it's going to bring a new strategic focus on delivering training that is really relevant to the job opportunities that are emerging. So there is a lot of change going on to deliver a more effective service to those who are out of work, and obviously the Deputy should really table those questions to the ministers who are driving that reform. But we have huge work to, for example, just take the banks, to fix the banks from the situation that we found ourselves in, where credit had collapsed for SMEs. We're the second highest refusal rate throughout Europe. There's a huge amount of work to fix what was broken by the crash that we inherited. That's why you can't have a neat calculus and say so many actions will generate so many jobs. There's a lot of work to be done to fix what was damaged, and that work is being done, and we are seeing the success of the plan in the figures in employment. IDA, their best year in a decade. Enterprise Ireland, the best year in 5 years. Exports hitting record levels, double-digit growth in exports by indigenous companies. Those are a measure of the performance that's changing.
And question number 2 is in the name of Deputy Brian Stanley. Minister.
Sorry, thanks very much. Employment in agency-supported companies in Laois and Offaly have been very severely affected by the economic crisis. In the 3 years 2008-2011, the net loss on employment in these counties, in companies in these counties, was 1,247, representing a 21% loss in employment in this group of companies. In 2012, a net job loss in agency companies was 64. While this is still disappointing, it represents a substantial improvement in the trend. It comprises 54 gross jobs created and 24 job losses in IDA companies, and 215 gross jobs created and 309 job losses in Enterprise Ireland companies. The two counties have a small base of foreign-owned companies, employing fewer than 1,000 in total, mainly concentrated in engineering and mixed manufacturing. Over recent years, it has proved challenging to maintain and attract overseas manufacturing companies into these counties, as much of this investment globally is going to low-cost destinations such as Eastern and Central Europe and China. As a result of this locational shift in global manufacturing, both Laois and Offaly have seen a number of closures within the multinational sector. In order to reposition the counties to a more knowledge-based economy, IDA is marketing Port Laois as a key location for investment in the globally traded services sector, and Tullamore as a key location for investment in the medical technology sector, both sectors where Ireland has a capacity to win new investment. Irish-owned companies represent almost 80% of the exporting base of the two counties and have been more resilient in the face of the economic crisis. Enterprise Ireland have been actively working with its base of 136 companies in Laois Offaly, assisting their transition to specialise, to innovate, to develop skills and value and scale up, including through the launch of the new Potential Exporters Division, the Lean Business Offer, which enables manufacturing clients to increase productivity and competitiveness, the launch of a new development capital scheme at addressing a funding gap for mid-sized, high-growth indigenous companies. And indeed, in the last quarter of last year, Enterprise Ireland launched a 200,000 competitive feasibility fund in the Midland region aimed at sustaining start-ups in that area.
Thanks, Minister. I think you better stop there. Yes, Deputy Stanley. 2 minutes.
Thanks, Minister, for your answer. The reason I have this question down is that I saw figures back about a month ago, and I didn't believe them when I saw them first, in relation to the number of jobs created and the number of jobs lost in Laois and Offaly. The IDA supported companies have outlined there was 2 new jobs in Laois with 23 lost in IDA supported companies. Enterprise Ireland created 76 jobs in Laois, 138 were lost. Huge loss of jobs in County Laois. Offaly, you had 31 new jobs, 1 lost. Offaly fared slightly better. And in Enterprise Ireland supported companies, there was 139 created but unfortunately 171 lost. So you net loss there again in Offaly of 2 jobs, but Laois obviously has been worst affected. Now, I asked a question of the IDA back in November, and at that point there hadn't been one single visit by the IDA of client companies to Laois in the first 11 months of the year. The agencies, the agencies have lost the jobs, despite the fact that there's significant resources. I think over 80 million in the case of the IDA last year was the budget. And at the same time this is happening, and you outlined yourself the 3-year figures, which are, very bad. It's not as if we have had a number of good years. This comes on the back of a number of bad years. But the number of jobs, net jobs created in Cork, for example, was 1,833. In the case of Dublin, it was 4,012 jobs created in Dublin. And, there appears to be a two-tier system operating here. Since the government came to power, there was 3,100 net jobs being lost in the Midland region, and 3,700 out of 4 counties have left the labour market, mainly due to emigration. And the unemployment levels in the region is at 17.4%. 17.4%. It's massive, and it's very, very serious, and we're very concerned about it. And those of us who are trying to, project the Midlands in a positive way and to try and get things moving in the Midlands are, we're very feel very beaten down by these figures. It's, it looks very bad. We've discussed this with you in the past. People at local level are doing their best, but we finish up with a 17.4% jobless figure in the 4 Midland counties. And it's, as I say, the figures for the IDA and for Enterprise Ireland, it's not as if they're coming on the back of a number of good years. They're coming on the back of a number of appalling bad years due to the crash and all of that. We do feel that it needs to be got on top of, and what I would ask is that is there a two-tier system in operation in the state in relation
Thanks,
to
Deputy.
the IDA?
The Minister to respond.
Enterprise
There's very little time left, Minister.
Well, as you know, at the request of Deputy Charles Flanagan, I did have a delegation involving yourself, indeed, and other deputies and local authorities to meet with the IDA and discuss, the challenges. Now, the IDA has a very clear strategy. I mean, they have invested 3.2 million in the business park in Portlaoise, and they are targeting that as the scope for delivering in the internationally traded services. That's their offer. They also have a very significant flagship business park in Tullamore, and they've acquired planning permission for 10,000 square foot advanced technology units. So they are positioning Laois Offaly to be competitive. The truth is, of course, that it's not the IDA that decides where companies locate. Companies make decisions on the basis of many criteria. Often they are looking for whatever fit with their sector. And we really need to build the competitive advantage in the different regions to exploit the areas of opportunity. Now, I think looking at Laois Offaly, and particularly at the indigenous range, you will see huge strength in the food sector. And that is a sector that's doing exceptionally well and has good prospects for growth. So it's not all looking to IDA, it's also looking at how do we build sectors where we have inherent strengths. Those are the sectors. Engineering is a strong sector, so is forestry, so is food. So there's opportunities to build on those sectors. But we are seeking to build competitive, to make this competitive and to market it effectively. I think the figures, I don't have the figures on visits, but I think it's 3 visits in Laois Offaly last year, which was, I haven't got the figures to hand.
Okay, well, the time is up.
3 units, 3 new proposed units by the IDA, just the location of those ministers. And that there is a target there of 50% foreign direct investments is supposed to be located outside of Dublin and Cork. We are down at 35%, in the Midlands, particularly in Laois Offaly, would appear to be a lot lower than that. But just my comment on those 3
I'm sorry,
new
Deputy,
units.
but the time is up now. I'm sorry. Deputy Healy, question number 3, in the name of Deputy Healy, and it's to do with a visit of industrialists to South Tipperary.
I am informed by IDA Ireland that during 2012 there were 5 site visits by potential investors from overseas to South Tipperary. Also during 2012, Enterprise Ireland, whose focus is on assisting Indigenous companies, dealt with 77 client companies in South Tipperary who employ 2,151 people. South Tipperary forms part of IDA's South East region, along with counties Carlow, Kilkenny, Wexford and Waterford. In South Tipperary, there are 8 IDA Ireland-supported companies employing 3,400 people. The key industry sector for South Tipperary is life sciences, which accounts for almost 90% of employment. The largest employers are Abbott and Boston Scientific, followed by MSD, Pinewood Laboratories and Sure Pharma. As part of its offering to potential clients, IDA has invested in the provision of an extensive portfolio of property solutions countrywide. In Tipperary, the availability of the former J&J Cordis facility is an important offering which the IDA is actively promoting. In addition, the ongoing development of the 300-acre park at Ballingaran in Clonmel is an important asset. As the Deputy is aware, I established the South East Forum following the publication of the South East Action Plan in December 2011. That action plan was initiated following the Talk job losses in Waterford and in recognition of the serious unemployment situation in the South East region generally. Part of the remit of the forum, comprising representatives of the relevant agencies and stakeholders, was to examine ways of ensuring better synchronisation of effort in order to avoid duplication and produce synergies that would lead to job creation. The action plan has a number of recommendations which the agencies and stakeholders are charged with implementing. I'm satisfied that all key players in the region have been working together from within existing budgets to pursue the plan's recommendations.
Thank you, Minister. And Deputy Healy.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Minister, our first thoughts this evening are indeed with the 245 staff of Abbott Clonmel who have just heard the devastating news of job losses this afternoon. And I would ask the Minister to personally intervene to ensure, first of all, that the staff affected that they get a good financial package, that they get required training and upskilling for future employment, and to intervene with the company. And this is a large company with a large number of remaining workers on the site, to ensure the continued commitment of the company to the site, and indeed to replace the jobs that have been lost with new initiatives and developments at the site itself. This Abbott, as you know, is a significant employer, a significant flagship industry for the county and indeed beyond. And I would also ask, Minister, in view of the closures of, for instance, Kickham Barracks, also of St Michael's Psychiatric Unit, and indeed other closures in the area, and these closures coming this afternoon, that you would in fact establish a task force to prioritise employment for South Tipperary, for the South Tipperary area. As you know, the area has been hit by significant levels of unemployment over the years, rising from 3,524 in 2008 to 9,173 today. That's almost trebled the figures. So I hope, Minister, that in respect of the Abbott situation, that you would personally intervene as I've requested, and that you would indeed establish a task force, as I said, to prioritise employment for the county as a result of this news this afternoon.
Minister.
Yeah, well, thanks very much indeed, Deputy, for raising this. I mean, I absolutely agree. Our first thoughts have to be with the workers. This is a really tough day for them. I have spoken to the company, and I'm reassured that they will give very full support, both in terms of the package of support and assistance in terms of retraining. I'm also heartened, that the company is absolutely committed to this site. As you know, they are making significant investments in the site as well at the same time, and this is to develop the site further. It's a site that has been award-winning both within the company and externally. The company are absolutely fully committed to it. They're making investments that will see the quality of production in this site improve and grow more competitive for the long-term future. This company, as you rightly say, is a very committed company, not just to Clonmel, but to nationally. It employs 3,200 people nationally and across 11 sites. So I am very reassured, although it's a sad day for the 200 affected, I am reassured of their full commitment. In terms of the South East and the future, as I said, I have established a South East Action Plan. I have all of the agencies working together to promote the South East, which includes South Tipperary. And I am heartened at the progress that's being made. And I can assure you that I will continue to have a focus both on South Tipperary and the wider South East region, because it is, as the Deputy says, a region that has been particularly badly affected in recent years and needs the spotlight upon it, as we have given it in the South East Action Plan.
I'm afraid the time is just up, so just very briefly, Deputy.
Very briefly, Cathaoirleach, just to say that I would ask the Minister again and reiterate the need for a task force for South Tipperary, and just very briefly to say that the figures, unemployment figures for the county are significant and have trebled almost over the last number of years. Clonmel has gone from 1,068 to 2,907 unemployed. The town of Carrick-on-Shores, about 6,000 people, have now 2,007 unemployed. Tipperary town, a similar size, gone to 1,732 unemployed. Care, 1,300.
Deputy, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave it there now.
And Cashel with 1,196. I would really ask the Minister, in view of those figures and the closures today in relation to Abbott, but also Kickham Barracks and others, that the Minister would consider a task force for the area. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy. The next question now is in the name of Deputy Derek Cleary again, and it's on the Credit Guarantee Scheme and Microfinance Scheme and the uptake of both.
Thank you very much. The Deputy will be aware that both the Microfinance Ireland MFI and the Credit Guarantee Scheme both began operating in October 2012. It's my intention that the progress reports on the loan fund will be published via the MFI website, microfinanceIreland.ie, and updates on both schemes will be published on my department's website, enterprise.gov.ie, on a quarterly basis. Over 100 loan applications have been received by the MFI, with 27 loans approved to date to a value of 427,000, supporting 68 jobs. MFI is currently actively promoting the availability of its loan fund and is focusing on a media campaign to raise awareness of the scheme across the country. Other options for promoting the fund are also being examined. MFI was also established as a private limited company with a board of directors, and the directors have set the interest rate to be charged on loans under this scheme at 8.8%, taking into account a number of factors including prevailing market interest rates, the economic environment and the specific risk factors. The Deputy will note that lending to micro-enterprises is high risk due to the high failure rates with business startups, little or no track record, and the fact they have previously been refused by banks before they make application here, and no security available. Therefore, pricing of loans tends to strike a balance between the support of new startups and the rapid erosion of the taxpayer equity put into the scheme. With regard to the Credit Guarantee Scheme, there are currently 14 approved guaranteed loans, resulting in 1.5 million of additional lending being provided to viable companies at the close of business on the 15th of February 2013. As a result of the sanctioned lending, it is expected that there will be 130 new jobs created and 19 jobs will be maintained. A premium rate of 2% is payable by the borrower. A rate of this nature has to be set to ensure the scheme complied with EU state aid rules and was set at the lowest end of the potential pricing spectrum, which Minister Bruton agreed. In consideration of these categories and recognising the current situation of SME lending market in Ireland in the current economic conditions, it will be difficult to justify making the case for premium rate any lower than the 2% for a guarantee of this nature. And just on the point, finally, I am meeting the board of Microfinance Ireland in the next 2 weeks, and also equally that's on the Microfinance Fund, and where I'm also meeting the Bank of Ireland, the Ulster Bank and EIB, who are managing the personal loan guarantee, just for an update in the next 2 weeks as well.
Deputy Cleary. 4 minutes overall for the...
Thank you, Chairman. Dublin South, turn around there, nicely done. Just a couple of things. I think the 100 on the microfinance scheme are healthy. I think that's to be welcomed. But clearly, when we've only had 14 approved on the credit guarantee scheme, it points to a serious problem on awareness. And when you do meet the banks, I think, Minister, you need to bring it home to them that they need to do a lot more in bringing awareness of this. Now, I know that you, in the last years, have undertaken tours of the country with chambers of commerce, with local business groups around access to finance issue. And I wonder, would you consider doing that again? Now that you have these two solutions in place, people just simply do not have the awareness. And there's just a common problem right across the department about awareness. And the poster boys for the department, the exporters, their survey of exporters last year, 51% of their respondents were dissatisfied with the information provided on application process across 5 schemes. So there's no sense in all the work you've put in to put the schemes in place, and there to be general lack of awareness about it. And finally, you talk about businesses that were previously refused by the banks, and that used to be an okay excuse, but given the level of refusal by banks, when many solid businesses refused by banks, and many very healthy businesses, I think it is unfair to price in a premium because a bank previously refused a business. But I think the most important thing is we need to build the awareness of these schemes.
Thanks. Just over 2 minutes left.
I want to thank Deputy Cleary for raising this very important point. It is about the point of sale and the engagement, and likewise with, as Deputy Bruton has stated even recently, that we're totally unhappy with the level of lending by banks and the banks have been recapitalised by the taxpayer. But clearly on the issue of the microfinance fund, I'm meeting the board. They have a very active board in Independence Credit. It's a company, it's a charitable company status, and they're very proactively, and they are working with the enterprise offices in every county. But I would agree entirely, it is about getting on the ground, making people more aware of the scheme and engaging with the enterprise offices in Mayo and Sligo and Roscommon to just hear of the schemes, because a lot of people are unaware of the scheme. On the point with the Bank of Ireland, Ulster Bank and EIB, and the light of the guarantee by the state, I am very much disappointed that there's not a more proactive engagement, and I will be dealing directly with the banks to see as to why this very slow uptake on this guarantee by the state is not good enough, and we're very disappointed that it's not a greater application. But I will certainly give you an update following the meeting with the banks to clearly put the obligation on them to get involved and give this money out to business people who need it.
Well, Minister, I absolutely agree with you in relation to the banks, and in fact I tabled a question to you to seek your opinion on that, and it was disallowed. So thank you for giving me your opinion that the banks are not lending enough. The two pillar banks have been recapitalised, they've been given targets, and you're meeting businesses every day. In fairness to you, you're in touch with what's on the ground, and you can see what's happening. And I think really the Department of Enterprise needs to tell the Department of Finance to put the pressure in, put the boot in, because this is costing jobs, and there's no sense in having all these schemes, no sense in having fancy plans, while at the end of the day, profitable and healthy businesses cannot get access to finance.
Okay, there's 30 seconds left. If you want
That's fine. Well, Minister Bruton is actively engaging with the banks, because banks are now in the domestic lending. If they need successful business people, and I think with the jobs plan being announced, the onus is on the banks, and clearly with the state guarantee there at the moment, I think we will be expecting a lot more tangible results from the banks, that they're actively engaging with business people, not alone in the guarantee, but in other aspects of business. And we have given them the taxpayers' money. If we want to create jobs, you have all the plans in the world, but people cannot get the loan, the necessary funding for viable business, it just cannot be done. So thank you.
Thanks very much. We move now to question number 5 in the name of Deputy Brian Stanley. Minister.
The micro and small business sector is essential to Ireland's overall economic recovery. The purpose of restructuring the current model for the delivery of state supports to that sector is to rejuvenate and enhance the national model. The new model is designed to harness the best elements of local government and the enterprise agency to support local business and contribute to local development. To that effect, we have decided to dissolve the current 35 separate board structures and to create a first-stop shop, Deputy Stanley, at local level for small and micro business. Bring local enterprise support into an integrated national network of local enterprise offices, offering progression to the existing national programmes run by Enterprise Ireland. Combine enterprise supports for small business at local level with business support services from local authorities into a single local enterprise office. and locate this office within local authorities, but operating under the service level agreement with Enterprise Ireland. Enlist the support of local authorities in creating the best possible environment for small business in their area and benchmark the progress being made. Work with local businesses, which is critically important, and the wider community to create a supportive network of entrepreneurship. While I'm aware that there are some reservations, which we have heard about bringing the current CEBs within the umbrella of local authorities, I believe local authorities have great potential to be a vibrant partner for the development of small business. Many local authorities have been very innovative, and I've travelled and met many of them in providing space for start-ups, certainly for opening up procurement opportunities, supporting the marketing of local producers, offering incentives, streamlining access to planning and licensing, which the government has a major plan on as well. However, this is a challenge the local authorities to do more and to bring the culture of think small first into their work. Minister Bruton and I have consulted widely in the context of this proposed reform on a foot of a consultation paper we published at the end of last year, setting out the roadmap for the implementation of the reform process. More than 80 submissions were received.
Take the rest read into the record, and Deputy Stanley could like to open the questioning. 4 minutes overall for questions.
Well, thank the Minister for his reply. You know, the changeover from the county enterprise boards, you know, substantial move with the 35 CVs changing over. And I would agree that some local authorities, certainly the local authority in my area in County Laois, has been very active in the job creation area and assisting small employment projects through the development of enterprise centres and other supports. The concern is that there seems to be some opposition to this from the SME sector, from ISME and the Small Firms Association in particular. They have publicly opposed it, and you know, they have expressed the belief that there isn't expertise in local authorities to carry out economic development or to propel economic development, and some have expressed a concern about political interference with business supports. There has been a consultation, but is there, you know, the consultation period is now over. Is there a turf war going on, and is that causing problems? And do you think, Minister, enough work has been done with the small business sector to you know, to convey that message out there to them that this will work within the local authorities?
Minister.
This has got to work, because the whole economy depends on the think small first principle, and the role of small business in every economy is absolutely critical. Minister Bruton has this heavy consultation going on with all the vested interests, and I chaired the advisory group to government, which is very much on the role of small business in the economy. I genuinely believe when you look at the 35 separate bodies, and we'd say that and all of the expertise of the enterprise boards will be retained, which is critically important. And also, I suppose, very much the businesses involved in the whole, I suppose, with the evaluation by people on local authorities as well, and the local expertise. I know there is concern there that local government, from the point of view, but I think it makes huge sense if we are talking about putting all the service in a one-stop shop facility that will involve the evaluation, will be very much involved locally of the projects. I think that you will get the expertise that are very much effective in the county and city enterprise boards, who have been very effective. But the change is not a bad thing, and I genuinely believe that when you look at the service level agreement by Enterprise Ireland, that whereas before you had a separate autonomy in every county, you're going to have joint up thinking here. You're going to have the best practices of the local authority at a front of house. So if somebody in Laois wants a service, when they go to the local enterprise office, they can get advice on mentoring, starting up your business, mentoring on banking applications. And I genuinely believe, Deputy Stanley, that the opportunity for business development, when you take the commitment of business people being involved themselves who know the business, we fully realise the backbone of the economy is small business, and we want to. Whereas before there was a lacuna there, if you're over 10 and up to 35 staff, there was a people and the working service in that category. We're seeing the high potential start-up companies will be very much encouraged by Enterprise Ireland, and you must remember that Enterprise Ireland employ 175,000 people. Enterprise Ireland-based companies, but these are companies that will feed into the IDA-based companies, Enterprise Ireland-based companies. So I genuinely believe that we are integrating the knowledge into a one-stop shop that can only benefit the rollout and the development and the start-up of new companies, both micro, start-up and developing existing companies.
Thank you. Okay. Well,
Just
we've run out of time, really, unless it's very, very snappy question.
Just ask briefly, have we got the Minister for Local Government and Environment recently expressed, that there was tensions there between state agencies and government departments, over this being moved away into the local authorities. And is there a tension there, and have those tensions been resolved?
I can assure you, Deputy, there's no tension whatsoever, because all of us in government and every state agency that I meet, they have one motivation: how can we get Ireland back working again? And that's my experience of dealing with civil servants, and they're totally committed, and everybody's out there at the moment. How can we get people back into business? And I'm very encouraged by it, and I think that none of that is that's only hearsay. The best evidence of this is we plan to roll it out as quickly as possible, and I look forward to go down to Laois myself to launch it.
Thank you. Now we move on to other questions. Minister, I think you're taking questions 6 and 22 together.
I am indeed. Thanks very much indeed. The 2012 Action Plan on Jobs included a specific objective of increasing price transparency by encouraging all professionals, accounting, taxation, legal, etc., to supply the business sector and consumers to provide price quotations in advance. In pursuance of this objective, the National Consumer Agency was tasked with conducting market research and liaising with business representative groups to compile and prioritise a list of professions where sourcing of fees is currently an issue, and commencing work with representative bodies with a goal to make standard fee lists available for routine services to both consumers and small business. The agency commissioned independent market research to identify professional services where sourcing quotations was an issue for consumers and small business. The research also aimed to identify any other issues or difficulties associated with obtaining quotations. One of the main findings of the research was that a significant number of small businesses do not seek quotes in advance when dealing with professions, or indeed experience difficulties in obtaining quotes when seeking services from providers in certain professions. Among the professions identified as posing difficulties for small business in obtaining quotations were solicitors, banking, accountants and insurance. Arising from its research, the agency apprised the relevant representative business groups of the findings, and in particular the finding that a large number of small businesses do not seek quotes in advance when dealing with professions. Given its remit, the agency has also been involved in a number of price display initiatives with the objective of increasing price transparency and awareness in key sectors. In particular, the agency has initiated projects to improve price transparency to consumers in relation to a range of professions across GPs, dentists, solicitors and so forth. As of February 2013, the agency has agreed price display initiatives with the Dental Council, the IMO and Early Childhood Ireland. In addition, the agency is currently in discussions in relation to greater price transparency with the Law Society and the Health and Social Care Professional Council. The agency intends to target price transparency in other professional services as part of its 2013 work programme. Aside from the foregoing initiatives, the National Consumer Agency, it is also essential that both consumers and business actively seek to achieve best value for money through, for example, seeking quotations from service providers.
Deputy Cleary.
Thank you, Minister. Forfos, June 2011, in the report to Cost of Doing Business, they said that there's a danger that a structural barrier is preventing costs from adjusting or not removed. Once an economic recovery kicks in, recent competitiveness gains will be rapidly eroded. And the danger is, for instance, on the legal side of things, and this is being pointed out in various Troika reviews as well. When Minister Shadow arrived into the House last December, 12 months in a blaze of publicity, as is his wont, with the Legal Services Regulation Bill. He parked it up this time last year. We haven't seen it since. And his big boast of that particular bill was going to reduce legal costs, which are very serious and seriously out of kilter here. Now, you spoke about the NCA engaging with the Law Society. I understand the NCA wrote to the Law Society seeking an engagement on initiatives to improve transparency for SMEs. Can you ask, have they got a response and where we are at that initiative? And generally, what is your department's view on the Legal Services Regulation Bill? And is this a priority in the 2013 Jobs Action Plan, that we get some sort of resolution around lowering costs as well as doing the other stuff in terms of providing information. But there's no sense in us providing information when the costs are way out of kilter with international competitors.
Minister, I just remind the deputies that there's now about 6.5 minutes left for questions and answers, usually a minute each, just to remind anybody if they wish to make questions. Thank you, Minister.
Well, thanks very much for raising this. I mean, I think there's no doubt that fees in professions have been a problem area, and there's no doubt also that the arrival of the Troika has seen a lot of change that has, I suppose, languished over many years. Recommendations of the Competition Authority which were not implemented. By and large, those have now all been implemented or incorporated in the Legal Services Bill. So there is significant change in access in the, if you like, the competitive structure of the sector. It will be an ambition, clearly, of government to implement that legislation. The National Consumer Agency has indeed been in touch with the Law Society, and they requested indicative quotes for standard services to be available to consumers via websites and so on. It was suggested that the Law Society and the agency could draw up standard templates for a range of routine services which consumers could use to detail their requirements for particular services. I think it's instructive. I think the Consumer Agency did themselves do a very interesting survey of fees being charged for various legal services. For example, their survey on conveyancing showed that the difference between the cheapest quote for a standard conveyancing was $750 for the cheapest, up to $4,000 for the most expensive. So clearly there is huge scope for more competitive delivery to both businesses and consumers by shopping around. The Consumer Agency is obviously doing its best to make sure that there is more price display, but I think the message is very clear from this survey, which goes through conveyancing, making a will, probate, and so on. There are huge savings to be got by shopping around, and we are working also with the small business associations to get that message out to small business.
Thank you. Any supplementary?
It's all very well to tell people to shop around, but the reality is CSO figures up to the end of quarter three 2012 show a 2% increase in service producer prices. So there's no sense in us shopping around when the actual price curve is going up. And secondly, there is no legal services regulation bill. He parked it up. If he couldn't afford to drive it on, he's parked up. He's said that he's completely rewriting the bill. So we cannot assess or we cannot judge what impact this making up bill in Minister Shatter's mind is going to have on legal services. Is that a priority in what's going to come out tomorrow for 2013? Getting that bill through the House and enacting it.
Minister?
Well, I don't agree. I mean, I'm aware of the figures that you point to, that legal service costs have gone up by 2%, whereas the cost of all professional services have come down significantly. But by contrast, taking this example, conveyancing, you can get a 400% cheaper quote by shopping around. So I think, while the average fee level may be going up, I think there's great opportunity for people to get better value. And we're trying to get that message out, both through the Consumer Agency, but also through the business associations, and to press for a greater price display in professional organisations. I think Deputy Shatter obviously has committed, our Minister Shatter has committed to reform in this area. He has embraced the reforms that have been outlined by the Competition Authority as needed to bring a more competitive environment, and we do look forward to the implementation of that legislation.
Minister? Okay, we can now move on to the next grouping of questions. I believe the Minister is taking 7 and 20 together. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you very much indeed. In response to the requirements set out in the Action Plan for Jobs 2012-4 was prepared a draft strategy for the construction sector to 2015 following consultation with industry and other key stakeholders. The draft strategy sets out actions aimed at placing the sector on a sustainable footing for future growth. The issues facing the sector are broad-ranging and across several government departments and their agencies, including, for example, the Department of environment, community and local government in respect of housing policy, planning and development issues and building regulations, the Department of Finance and Public Expenditure and Reform and other relevant government departments in terms of the government's public capital programme, the Department of Communications, Energy, Natural Resources in respect of energy efficiency issues, and the Department of Education and Skills and Social Protection in terms of training, education skills, development, retraining issues and employment support services. In terms of my own department, a key focus for Enterprise Ireland EI is the internationalisation of construction services, and EI is continuing to work intensively with the sector in this regard. Historically, the construction sector has been a significant contributor to the Irish economy, and it remains important, albeit on a more sustainable scale. As we all know, the sector grew to unsustainable levels on the back of the property bubble, resulting in very significant job losses, with the market turned and the recession took full hold. A key concern across government is the scale of these job losses and the need to rebuild the sector along an innovative and sustainable growth path for the future, thereby contributing to the economic and social development of the country. In conclusion, the report on the construction was approved by Forfos board last week and has just been presented to the department. It identifies as key areas for potential initiatives such as improving actions in the domestic market, driving further into internationalisation, embedding the competitiveness and the innovation in the sector, and ensuring the sector is skilled to deliver in emerging areas of opportunity. These recommendations will now be considered by the Department and in due course by the Government, and incorporates 30 actions.
Thanks very much, Minister. Deputy Cleary.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Minister. Minister, who will be in charge of delivering on those 30 actions? Will it be your department? Will it be the usual troika of jobs, of education and of social protection? And how will we be able to measure their action? We all know the actual decline in the sector, but when you think that at the moment, Minister for Social Protection has confirmed to me in a PQ that 1 in 4 of those in the live register, 109,000 or so people, were former construction worker. 53,000 of those have previously worked in a trade, so they have some element of skill. It may be a skill that needs updating for a newer type of industry, so we should focus on them. 10,000 of those had previously worked as plant and machinery operatives. 1,500 had worked as architects, town planners or surveyors. I mean, they're very high qualifications, and a little bit of attention, a bit of conversion could be used in other sectors of the economy. We can't, just because the construction sector has fallen to the extent it has, and there has been some job growth in the first few months of this year in it. But these are very skilled people. We will have an upturn, and there's no sense in us coming back to a situation that we had in the last upturn, where because there were so few skilled people, our labour costs went through the roof. So in terms of those 30 actions, how many of them address reskilling and updating skills, and how many of them address actual growth in the employment? And finally, against the cuts in the capital budget, which directly impact on this sector, will those 30 actions address that side of the things?
Minister.
Just very briefly, Deputy Cleary, that with regards to there is a dedicated unit within Enterprise Ireland, that potential exporter division holds responsibility for responding to the development of needs of such companies, reporting, allocating the export agenda, proactively promoting the range of services. And I believe that when you look at this survey acknowledged that the sector has made a rapid and dramatic transition from unsustainable boom to bust, and is currently operating at sub-optimal levels. The sector today employs 101,000 people directly, accounting for 5.5% of local employment. Output is currently 6.4% of GNP. Around the peak of the boom in 2006, the employment in the sector, over 250,000, account for 12%. So I believe that with regards to and just with the opportunity you must remember there's a big difference between developers and construction companies. We are very fortunate. We have some very fine construction companies. And while the UK continues to be the key export market for construction sector clients, Enterprise Ireland are focusing on a number of key areas, target markets and regions for further growth. Just say finally, with regards to answer the question,
very quickly,
with regards to the 30 actions, this is going to government. It hasn't been. I've no doubt it is across a number of of key departments that will be delivering on those very important actions, because Enterprise Ireland at the moment are doing a fantastic job with the construction companies that are all over the world, would say building, obviously employing Irish people abroad as well, but they are being very successful. But our job is to, this sector, it went through a massive downfall. It is 6% of the GDP at the moment. It's to get it back up there, but there's 101,000 people currently working on it.
Thank you. Deputy
Is there a
Killearn.
timeline on when that action plan will be published? And, Minister, again, can you give a commitment that maybe you or some minister will take account for delivering those plans? Because there's no sense dividing them across 3 departments, because they won't be delivered. They'll fall between the cracks between 3 departments. And this brings us back to one of my common themes, that the enterprise agenda is so dependent on skills that we really need a situation where there's far greater integration between the departments. So if we get a commitment that there will be somebody, a Mr. or a Miss construction action plan that can be held to account for the delivery of those 30 actions. And secondly, we have a domestic economy that the export side of things is strong, and we support the investment in that, but the domestic economy needs support and needs attention as well. And there are some construction companies who will never go abroad. They'll never leave their own county, never mind go abroad. And they are in need of attention as well.
I know that, forgive me for saying this, but in the last government there may not have been joint up thinking, but in this government there certainly is when it comes to the action plan of jobs. And I think that I think the Taoiseach is very much driving the action plan for jobs, and it will be very evident. It is very important, without a shadow of a doubt. This report is not going to sit on shelves. It will be driven, and the actions by government. This is a plan of action of government. This is an all-inclusive government that will have to deliver in jobs, as we already discussed here today. And I've no doubt the action plan tomorrow will be very evident of integrated joint up thinking, and this job of delivering on the 30 recommendations, I'm quite certain will be discussed here in the Dáil, and it will be very clear mandate of government and a very critical sector of the economy that's absolutely essential, that gets every support possible. But I'm very confident with the role of Enterprise Ireland, what they're successfully doing, not with developers. Now, developers brought this country to the ground. We're talking about some very successful construction companies who didn't go into development and are still there, thankfully, and doing a fantastic job outside of Ireland, building in every region of the world, Asia, Europe, all over. And they're the people that we want to attract back into Ireland to continue that role of employment.
Move now to the next grouping of questions. I believe questions 8 and 35 are being taken together.
Thanks very much indeed, Carl. I propose to take, yes indeed, questions 8 and 35 together. The Consumer Association of Ireland survey showed that comparing 16 items across the 4 major supermarket multiples found less than 2% price differential between them. This has also been a feature in surveys by the National Consumer Agency. The CAI suggests that special offers appear to be available rather than price differences to win customers. It should be said that price matching in itself is not a breach of competition law. The Competition Authority has, of course, conducted a number of studies into competition in the grocery sector. The long-term trend has seen a decline in the number of independent retailers and a growth in the number of multiples. The authority has found relatively weak competition at the wholesale and retail levels in the Irish grocery supply chain. Frequently, competition has been by way of special offers rather than price. The Irish distribution system has been found to be inefficient compared to the UK. That said, there has been quite an amount of change in the distribution channels that have brought savings, but these savings have not been uniform across the sector. The key recommendations made by the Competition Authority were to relax planning guidelines to make it easier for new retailers to contest the market. Minister Hogan has introduced new retail guidelines which are designed to reduce barriers to entry. The entry of discount retailers has undoubtedly introduced greater competition into the market. These stores do not typically carry the branded products surveyed by the CAI and were not included in its survey. As regards food prices generally, figures published by the Central Statistics Office show that food prices in Ireland increased by over 2.5% over the 20-month period, which coincided with the CAI survey, which in its case showed the price of 19 individual branded grocery items in 4 multiples had increased by over 12%. So clearly there is value out there in the market, as well as the position in relation to these individual branded products. The CSO Harmonised Index of Consumer Prices, which is based on over 65 different categories of food headings, is the accepted measure for comparing price trends across the EU. It showed that food prices in Ireland increased by 1.6% in the 12 months to December 2012, as compared with an increase of 3.4% in the EU, and 3% for the euro area, and 3.8% for the UK.
Thank you, Minister. I think the Consumers Association and the CSO figures have brought a spotlight back onto the supermarket side of things that hasn't been there for some time. And as you said, it's, you use the phrase relatively weak competition. The difficulty in this instance is that relatively weak competition is impacting on people's day-to-day existence. Everybody has suffered very severe income cuts, and everybody is cutting everything to the bone at this stage. And when you see even a 2.5% increase in staple food products in a year, even if you were to disregard the 12% increase, it's 2.5% too much at a time when a lot of input costs have been reduced. Are there any plans within your department to review the operation of the food and supermarket industry here on this part of the island, with a view to benchmarking it against, say, the UK, benchmarking it against other European competitors to see, is there stuff we can do to encourage more competition? Secondly, are you happy with the supply arrangements that are in place, that there's proper behaviour between supermarkets and their suppliers, and is there any work underway in the department around that? And finally, there will be no new entrants to the market, particularly the current stage it's in. What are we doing to support those existing, and particularly those independent retailers who are there at the moment within the market?
Thanks very much. I agree that this is a sector that has very serious knock-on impacts. Overall, the last number of years, the Irish food sector has become more competitive relative to EU. So there is improvements occurring against international trends. Now, there have been significant new entrants, and clearly some of the new entrants are building significant market share at keen prices, and I think that is evident. But I am conscious that this is a sector that does need to be kept under review. It has been studied on a number of occasions before, and I think it remains one that is of interest in the work of my department and the agencies within it. I think these surveys are a very useful way of keeping a consciousness of the opportunities. As regards to supply chains, I am introducing competition legislation later in the year, and it will include powers to ensure that there is fair relationships in the supply chain. This has been an issue that has been of concern. On the wider issue of supporting the retail sector, clearly there are opportunities for the retail sector, even in a different climate, to evolve. And going online is obviously an area of potential. We're reviewing all of the licences for the retail sector, which John Perry has been, if you like, spearheading, to make sure that we remove the blockages in retail sector that add compliance costs to small business.
Any supplementary question?
Minister, can you, just another issue, you may not have a briefing on it, is the whole issue of alcohol sales within the retail sector. Is the government any closer to publishing its strategy in relation to that area, which will impact on this overall sector?
I'm afraid I don't have briefing on the timing of that.
We can now move on to question number 9. Thank you. In the name of Deputy Murphy.
Thank you very much indeed. A large number of companies in Ireland seek graduates with backgrounds in science, technology, engineering and maths. This is not confined just to the technology sector. Such skills are increasingly needed in every sector. Ireland's education and training institutions are currently providing a wide range of courses which qualify graduates to meet these skill needs and to match employment opportunities as they arise. They include technology programs in computer science, software engineering, computer applications and support. Overall, Ireland is ranked #1 in the world for skills availability, with almost 48% of people aged between 25 and 34 having benefited from third-level education. Over half of the students in Ireland graduate with a degree in engineering, science or business. Nevertheless, skill gaps have emerged, particularly in ICT skills, and given global demand, this is not an issue that is unique to Ireland. Demand for the necessary high-level ICT skills is exceeding supply. In response to this problem, last year, my colleague Rory Quinn, Minister for Education and Skills, and I launched the Joint Government Industry ICT Action Plan, meeting the high-level ICT skills needs of enterprise in Ireland. Crucial elements of the ICT Skills Action Plan are upskilling and conversion programmes. The conversion programmes in particular recognise the impacts of the economic recession on the numbers of talented graduates from non-computing disciplines who are unemployed. A key element of these programmes has been the commitment by the industry to provide work experience during programmes and opportunities for placement on completion. These initiatives are designed to ensure that the maximum possible numbers of jobs are filled domestically. Overall, the programme plans to double the number of graduates available in these sectors. The Joint Oireachtas Committee on Jobs, Enterprise and Innovation, in its recent review of ICT skill demand in Ireland, found that these skills are vital to the successful transformation of many sectors to become innovative and respond to market opportunities. The mix of experience and skill from outside Ireland is essential to build diverse and dynamic clusters in these important areas.
We can go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Supplementaries now.
Thanks, Minister. It's only a few weeks ago that there was an article in the media in relation to concern, or there may well be losing out on foreign direct investment into the country because there was concern for some of the gaps that are here in the sector that you talk about. And essentially, where the ICT plan is in place, I mean, what are the timelines to bring the kind of numbers through that would not send out that kind of a signal that we may be open for business, but there is an inadequate supply of people? Because that certainly is something that is it has the potential of reducing, obviously, the number of companies that will set up here. I mean, I really don't have a big difficulty with employing people from outside that you're bringing new skills in. But, I mean, it would be ideal if we had those skills available here, and obviously through the education system. But are you talking to the Minister for Education in relation to some of the impediments for people to get back into education, like part-time education can be prohibitive in terms of the costs for people, for example, and particularly for people who are on welfare?
Minister,
I think. I beg your pardon. I think there is, as the Deputy said, there is a problem here, and these sort of creative people, there's estimates in other countries that one such person has a knock-on impact of about 5 jobs in the rest of the economy, because they transform the ability of key sectors to perform to a much higher level. So we can't afford to be without these skills. So while we are planning to double the graduate number, that clearly will take a 4-year cycle to achieve that. But in the meantime, we're putting through about 700 people on the springboard conversion courses in the ICT area. So, and they are, free to those participating. We also have about 1,200 work permits, people coming in on work permits with these sort of particular skills. And they will always be needed. There will always be a need to balance people of experience and international experience, because we need to form strong clusters in these sectors that they become magnets for skill, for enterprise development. So I think it's an area where the balance being open to bringing in outside skills and developing our internal is key. And I can assure you that Minister Quinn is absolutely alert to the opportunities in this sector.
Chairman, just quickly, Minister, there is a proposal with you for some time now in relation to a high-tech visa for people that bring very specific skills. Can you tell me, has the Department advanced that proposal? It's the one forward by Open Ireland. And secondly, what have you done and what consultation you have, Minister Quinn, in relation to our language deficit, particularly for those, to get people up to a skill proficient as if they're speaking in a native manner?
Mr. very quickly.
Yeah, well, we are working on a huge overhaul of the work permit system. We will make it much more accessible, much easier to deal with. We will broaden the ranges of skills, particularly where ICT people at the moment, they only, if you like, are regarded as an automatic category if they're working in the ICT sector. We recognise that about 75% of them work outside the ICT sector. So there will be a broader and easier system. We will introduce also trusted partner concepts, so people can have confidence that they will get permits. We're not, though, having a situation where anyone can walk in with a visa that is not related to a job opportunity. We're not going down that route, but it will be a dramatic change, I think. Language deficits continue to be a problem, and it isn't as simple as just putting on a few more courses. As the Deputy says, it is close to native speaking, and it will be a longer-term project, but there are concepts like international market and languages, international marketing and languages, which can be a real benefit to indigenous companies seeking to trade overseas. But some of the people able to speak language as native, that will be a harder, I suppose, gap to fill in the short term.
Because Deputy Murphy asked the question.
Just very quickly, Minister, and it's the link between education and availability. I mean, for example, the reduction in the pupil teacher, the increase in the pupil teacher ratio at PLC level, which is an important entry route, if you like, into third level for some people, is going to reduce the number of courses. Now, I don't know what will impact in the ICT area, but would you have had a discussion with the Minister about that type of thing? Because there's no point in finding out about this kind of thing after the problem has shown itself. It's anticipating it beforehand.
I think what's exciting about what Mr Quinn and Minister Callan are doing is that they're not only providing the courses, but they're providing the connections to employers. For instance, the Momentum initiative, I think it is a really good initiative. That's 6,500 places of people who will have placement in an education setting, but also a matching placement period in a workplace. You know, that's the sort of new thinking that's coming now from the Department of Education and Skills, which I think will, join the dots, bring enterprise and the education system closer together. Because we've learned from the likes of Germany and so on, that only when those links are forged that you will get quality skill that really is